I welcome you all to Educational Stuff. Today we'll be having the discussion on the editorial page of the Hindu newspaper. Today is 21st May 2020. Before we look into the articles, I would like to brief it out. The first article which discusses about the working measures that should be taken after this lockdown has been lifted up. A second article which compares the preparedness between the two nations, China and India. The third article which focuses on the health services, how the health services scenario during this pandemic situation, and the fourth and final article which addresses regarding the vulnerabilities in the crisis, as well as the strategies and the national concern during this privatization move by the government of India. As you can see from the picture, the number of migrants have been exaggerated. Exaggerated means increasing day by day. The migrants, the one who is going from the workplace to the homes, have been increased, as you can see from the picture. Before we start the editorial analysis, I would like to throw some light on different vocabulary. First, batters. Batter means strike against forcefully. Wind battered the tent. In a context of usage in the sentence, we can say that wind battered the tent. Second one, ferry. Ferry means transport by boat or aircraft or a means of transportation. Spy held for ferrying migrants with fake e-passes. The third one, trespass. Trespass means enter unlawfully on someone's property. China accuses India of trespass. Fourth one, rolls back. Rolls back means on an occasion when the influence of a particular law or rules etc. is reduced. Haryana rolls back decision to resume interstate bus services. Spike. Spike means increase. Spike in COVID-19 cases for a second day in a row. It is a sentence usage. Deceased. Deceased means the recently dead person. In a sentence usage, you can say the judge inferred that the deceased was confused as to extent of his assets. Commemorate. Commemorate, the meaning of commemorate means mark by some ceremony or observation. The citizens commemorate the anniversary of the revolution with a march and a parade. Nettle. Nettle means causing annoyance or disturbing. In a sentence usage, mosquitoes buzzing in my ear really nettles me. Overwhelm. Overwhelm. The meaning is become filled with uncontrollable emotions and too much sensory input. In a sentence usage, overwhelmed with grief. Grief means again a pain. Retrospective. Retrospective means an exhibition of representative selection of an artist's life work or concerned with or related to the past. In a sentence usage, retrospective self-justification. Agitation. Agitation means a state of anxiety or nervous excitement. Agitation in a sentence usage, she was wringing her hand in agitation. Exempt. Exempt means to get free from. In a sentence usage, board exams exempted from the lockdown steps. When push come to shove, this is a phrasal verb, or we can call it as idiom in contextual usage. The meaning of when push come to shove is when the pressure is on, or when the situation is critical or urgent, or when the time has come for action, even it might be a difficult time. In a sentence usage, how when push come to shove, this is a phrasal verb. In a sentence usage, he is not a particularly talented builder, but when a push come to shove, he can usually get the job done. Let's look into the article discussion. The first article This talks about employees, attendance, and working safety measures. Employers should see the value of reduced attendance and encourage staff protection. Countries around the world are focusing on extraordinary challenges and making the workplace safe, issuing the guidelines to help workers return to their jobs. Reduced attendee. Reducing the number of people present at any given time is the universal principle, either through resort to shifts or arrangements to enable employees to work from home. Union Health Minister focuses on preventive measures at workplaces. The Union Health Minister has addressed the issue through a manual of preventive measures that covers all types of workers and workplaces and depends heavily on behavioral change, with some additional requirements for confined spaces such as offices. Physical distancing of at least 1 meter mandatory, use of face masks or covering the face, frequent hand washing with soap, respiratory etiquette, sanitizing contact surfaces, and self-monitoring of health. Failure to maintain distancing or more is so in a poorly ventilated, closed environment gives the virus a free run, as the Chennai's wholesale vegetable market showed starkly. This is regarding the employer's work shift safety, which was discussed in this article. Let's move to another article. Which says China better prepared for post-COVID. Several weeks before the advent of COVID-19 pandemic, India's Minister of External Affairs S. Jaishankar had observed that what defines power and determines national standing is also no longer the same. Technology, connectivity, and trade are at the heart of new contestations. The minister that could never have imagined that within a few weeks his prediction would have overtaken by a tectonic shift in the global situation thanks to the virus and the pandemic. Deep economic impact. India has surpassed China with regard to the number of confirmed cases and has moved past the figure of 1 lakh. Jobless have been massive, especially in urban areas. India's export in the month of April, for instance, were the worst in the past 30 years. The harrowing plight of India's migrant workers and the images of hungry, aimless, disposed migrant workers, family trudging along the highways of the nation, have searched the coincidence or concise of the nation. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's announcement of 20 lakh crore stimulus package was hence timely, even though economists now believe that in rural terms it amounts to 2% of GDP rather than 10% of the government makes out. Finding resources for even this stimulus package will, however, not be easy. Package is more a mosaic. A valid criticism is that the patchwork of stimulus package reveals a disjoint mosaic of ideas and thoughts. Also, that these would be more relevant to budget discussion than a stimulus package. In the list of items mentioned as a part of stimulus package are aspects such as throwing open of defense production and coal sectors to the private sectors, references to opening up defense and aerospace for private companies, support to budgetary provisions for domestic defense procurement, bringing out negative import, a list of weapons and military platforms, etc. Many are hence viewing this stimulus package as a panic reaction to an increasingly difficult situation rather than a deliberate plan of action. China's calibrated moves. Setting the standards. China also set about rewriting international rules premised not so much on governing where global goods are made, but on setting standards that define production, exchange, and consumption. India must plan well, mounting an effective challenge to China. At this time, I would require a well-conceived or well-convinced and conceived and carefully calibrated plan of action by India. As of now, this is not evident. India and China will certainly emerge from pandemic more diminished than previously, but to a varying extent. This is a comparison between India and China, how they should prepare for the post-COVID world. Let's move to yet another article which discusses regarding the healthcare. Healthcare services cannot be allowed to be overwhelmed by pandemic. Mathematically, the whole is equal to the sum of its parts, neither more nor less, but the COVID-19 pandemic has taken the parts and overwhelmed the whole. The lockdown, as it was received originally, was meant to be at the best a stopgap agreement that would help nations tide over the crisis caused by SARS-CoV-2. But as the days rolled on and the lockdown moved on from phase to phase, it has caused a paralysis in the general healthcare. As past healthcare resources in more part of the country have been challenged towards the COVID-19 effort, the numbers have risen, but normal healthcare services have been suspended animation for just under the 2 months. Staff running several national health programs and state health missions, beside healthcare workers from the territory hospitals down to the primary health centers, have been diverted to buttress public health efforts in the COVID-19 battle. But the time has now come for the country to attempt equipoise of sorts, balance the different requirements of healthcare along with efforts to continue to fight COVID-19. While the healthcare services themselves have been on the back foot for non-COVID-19 conditions, except in emergencies, access to for the bulk of the population have been hampered by the non-availability of public transportation. Recent data culled from National Health Mission pointed to less than normal coverage in the key areas such as immunization, institutional deliveries, further delay or failure in delivering life-saving drugs to persons with HIV, tuberculosis, or inability to support for over chronic conditions have been documented. The usually robust private health system, which caters to various segments of the population, also took a backseat or played a supportive role. While the finance minister's announcement of increase in the health allocations as a part of 20 lakh crore relief package is a welcome, more than money is required to set this right. If life after COVID-19 is not to be worse than the life before the pandemic, the governments need to ensure that the country's multi-layered health system is not sacrificed at the altar of one virus. They need to give it to their whole attention now. This is a comparison of different sectors of health during this COVID-19 situation. Let's look into another article, which is Grasping the Defense Self-Reliance Nettle. Nettle means causing disturbance or causing annoyance. The measures recently announced by Finance Minister to promote self-reliance in defense production address a long-standing strategic and national security concern about the extent of India's external dependence for its defense preparedness. For most of the past decade, India has a dubious distinction of being the world's largest arms importer, accounting for about 12% of global arms import. An opportune moment, the decision to notify a list of weapons of sourcing entirely from India's manufacturers, the promise to progressively expand this list, and a separate budget provision for the domestic capital procurement will encourage our private defense manufacturers whose research capacity, technology skills and quality commitment are often better appreciated by the following clients for whom they are the subcontractors. There is a range of platforms and subsystems developed in India and qualified in trial, some of which face hurdles to their induction by our armed forces because of foreign competition. These include missiles such as Akash and Nag, and light combat aircraft and light combat helicopter, artillery guns, radars, electronic warfare systems and armed vehicles. The government had promised a time-bound defense procurement process, overhauling trial and testing procedures and establishing a professional project management unit. The significance of these measures is underscored by the fact that over the past 5 years, the Indian government had approved 200 defense acquisition proposals valued of over 4 trillion rupees. But most are still in relatively early stages of processing. The decision to corporatize the Ordnance Factory Board is another long overdue reform. Over the decades, our ordnance factories have been backbone of indigenous supplies to our armed forces, from weapon system to spares, ammunition and auxiliaries. The structure, work culture and a product range now need to be responsive to technology and quality demands of modern armed forces. Corporatizing, including public listing of some units, ensures a more efficient interface of manufacturer with designer and end user. The factories would be better integrated into larger defense manufacturing ecosystem. FDI impact. The liberalization of foreign direct investment in defense manufacturing, raising the limit under the automatic route to 74%, should open the door to more joint ventures of foreign and Indian companies for defense manufacturing in India. It would also sustain a beehive of domestic industrial activity in the research, design and manufacture of the system and subsystem. Our companies, which have been subcontractors for the prominent defense manufacturer abroad, would now get an opportunity to directly contribute to Indian defense manufacturing system. Above all, a radical rest has to overcome resistance to change of a key components of any major reform: money, method and mindset. Mindset is the most critical and most intractable. It takes a crisis to change it. This is regarding the grasping the defense self-reliance nettle. The government's move will help address vulnerabilities in the crisis as well as a strategic and national security concern. And that's the end of today's discussion. Thanks for joining and goodbye.